My parents uninvited me from Thanksgiving because I supposedly embarrassed my sister. But her boyfriend is the one who exposed what she'd really been doing behind everyone's back. And when the truth came out, my whole family's perfect image shattered. Stay with me for a few minutes while I tell you what really happened. If this story hits your heart even a little, don't forget to show some love to the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might need it. My name is Zariah Okoye. I'm 27, African American with Nigerian roots, and honestly, I've always felt like the outsider in my own family. My parents, Regina and Marshall, never said it out loud, but the way they treated me and my younger sister Maddie made everything painfully clear. Maddie, Madeline Brookhart, was the soft-spoken golden child. The girl who could do no wrong, even when she very obviously did plenty wrong. Growing up, I was the one expected to compromise, apologize, smooth things over, and keep the peace. Maddie was the star, I was the background. And even though it hurt, I kept trying. I kept showing up. I kept hoping things would get better. But everything shifted after one family dinner a few weeks ago. We were all gathered to celebrate Maddie's new job. She was glowing, smiling, acting like she climbed a mountain with her bare hands. I was genuinely happy for her, until she started throwing small jabs at my career choices. Little comments disguised as jokes. I ignored them at first. I always did. But then she went too far, saying something like, "Well, not everyone can be ambitious, right, Zariah?" And the whole table laughed. Even my parents. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I simply said the truth, that she got the job because her boyfriend Liam recommended her to his boss. That's it. Nothing more. Her face changed instantly. She acted like I exposed her deepest shame. She started crying, accusing me of trying to humiliate her. My parents didn't hesitate, not for a second. They stood up for her, like they always do, telling me I was out of line and jealous. That night, Maddie sent a dramatic message to the family group chat about how hurt she was. Of course, everyone comforted her. No one asked me what actually happened. A few days later, I got a short, cold text from my mom. "With everything going on, it's best you don't come to Thanksgiving." I stared at it for a long time. Thanksgiving was the one holiday I truly cared about. The one tradition I tried to hold on to. Being uninvited felt like someone punched straight through my chest. But what I didn't know then was that Liam, quiet, polite, always watching, had his own secret. And the truth he was holding on to was about to flip everything my parents believed upside down. Ever since I was a little girl, I could feel the difference in how my parents treated Maddie and me. Regina and Marshall always put her on a pedestal. Maddie, with her soft voice and polite smile, was the golden child. Everything she did was praised, every success celebrated, as if it were the most important thing in the world. And me? I was the shadow, the one expected to compromise, to let things slide, to keep the peace no matter how unfair it felt. Growing up, I learned quickly that speaking up too loudly or showing my frustrations would only make things worse. Maddie could be manipulative, small lies, little half-truths, or moments of calculated charm, but somehow my parents never saw it. To them, she was innocent, perfect, beyond reproach. And when she wanted something, they made sure she got it. I watched from the sidelines, feeling the sting every time, but I kept trying to maintain peace. I learned to smile, to nod, to bite my tongue, even when my heart ached. Thanksgiving was always different. It was the one time I felt a sense of control, the one tradition that felt like mine. I loved gathering in the kitchen, helping with the cooking, smelling the turkey roasting, the mashed potatoes, the pies. It was the one holiday I clung to, the one where I could still feel a sense of belonging, even if it was fleeting. For me, Thanksgiving wasn't just about food. It was about family, about the connection I tried so hard to hold on to despite years of being overlooked. But this year, everything felt off. For the first time, I sensed that I might not even be allowed to take part. The argument at the dinner table with Maddie had shaken the family. I could feel the shift. My parents' favoring of her suddenly felt like a wall I couldn't climb. I anticipated their judgment, their automatic siding with her, and it was terrifying. Even as resentment simmered inside me, I knew better than to explode. Years of being the peacemaker had trained me to absorb the unfairness, to act as if everything was normal. But this time, the thought of being excluded from Thanksgiving, the one holiday I cherished, felt like a breaking point. I could see in my mind how Maddie would look, sweet and innocent, telling our parents exactly what they wanted to hear while painting me as the troublemaker. And yet, a small part of me refused to give up completely. The The stakes had never felt higher. Thanksgiving had always been a place where I could try to connect, to hold my family together. But now, with my parents' bias so clear and Maddie's manipulations ready to take center stage, I faced the very real possibility of being pushed out completely. It wasn't just a holiday anymore. It was a test of how much I would endure before finally standing up for myself. The anticipation, the fear, and the anger all mixed together, making me realize that this Thanksgiving could change everything. A few weeks before Thanksgiving, we had a family dinner to celebrate Maddie landing her new job. The restaurant was cozy, the candles flickering, and everyone was trying to make it feel like a special night. Maddie, of course, was glowing, smiling as if the entire world had handed her success on a silver platter. But as the night went on, she started dropping little comments about me. Nothing overt, just sharp little jabs disguised as jokes. Comments about my job, my choices, the fact that I hadn't moved forward as quickly as she had. At first, I tried to laugh it off. I always did. I had learned long ago that fighting back often meant getting blamed. But this time, something in me snapped, not in anger, but in calm clarity. I didn't want to yell or argue. I just wanted the truth acknowledged. So when Maddie said something about how not everyone can land the perfect job without connections, I took a breath and said it. Her boyfriend, Liam, had recommended her to his boss. That's why she got her job. That was the truth, plain and simple. I didn't say it to humiliate her or to make her feel bad. I just wanted to set the record straight. The reaction was instant and explosive. Maddie's face turned red, her eyes wide. She started screaming, twisting my words, claiming that I was trying to humiliate her in front of everyone. The tone shifted immediately, and all eyes turned to me. My parents, who had sat smiling moments before, suddenly leaned in, scolding me right there at the table. "Zariah, that was completely inappropriate," my mom said sharply. "You embarrassed your sister." My dad shook his head, disappointment clear in every line of his face. I tried to explain, to tell them that I was only speaking the truth, but my words fell flat. Maddie's manipulation had already taken hold. Everyone saw me as the aggressor, the troublemaker, the one who had ruined the celebration. I sat there quietly, my hands gripping my fork, trying not to let tears show. Later that night, Maddie sent a message in the family group chat, painting herself as the victim. She wrote about how hurt and humiliated she was, carefully crafting a narrative that made her look innocent and me the villain. As expected, my parents immediately sided with her. Messages of support for her flooded the chat while mine went unanswered. In that moment, I felt completely invisible, as if nothing I said or felt mattered. The celebration of her new job had turned into a public shaming of me. It was a reminder, yet again, of the long-standing favoritism and manipulation I had grown up with. And at that dinner table, surrounded by smiles that now felt fake, I realized just how deep my family's bias ran, and how powerless I seemed to be in changing it. A few days after that awful dinner, my phone buzzed. I picked it up and froze. It was a message from my mom. "With everything going on, it's best you don't come to Thanksgiving." Just like that. No explanation, no apology, no discussion, just a cold, final text. My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't even think. Thanksgiving had always been the one holiday I looked forward to, the one day I could try to feel like a part of the family. And now, my parents had shut the door in my face before I even had a chance to speak. I sat there staring at the message, the weight of it pressing down on me. My mind raced with all the things I could say, all the ways I could fight back, but something held me back. I knew that if I reacted too quickly, it would just give them more ammunition to twist the story against me. So, I stayed silent, letting the words sink in. The silence didn't last long. Almost immediately, my phone started buzzing again. This time, it was messages from other family members. Little notes disguised as casual conversation. "Hope you understand. We're just trying to keep the peace. It's for the best." Every single one of them carried a sting, dripping with passive-aggressive judgment. I could feel their eyes on me even though they weren't in the room. Their disapproval like a heavy weight I couldn't escape. I debated whether I should respond, whether I should call, demand an explanation, or just pack up and go over there anyway. Part of me wanted to confront them directly, to defend myself, to make them see that I hadn't done anything wrong. But years of being the peacekeeper in my family told me that wouldn't work. Any confrontation would be spun against me. The smart move, I realized, was silence. To not give them the reaction they wanted. As I sat there, trying to calm my racing thoughts, a different message appeared. This one wasn't from my family, it was from Liam, Maddie's boyfriend. My heart skipped a beat. He said he wanted to meet me privately, that he had something important to discuss. I wasn't sure if I should trust him. After all, he was Maddie's boyfriend. But there was something in his tone, a seriousness I hadn't expected, that made me pause. I agreed to meet him, curiosity and anxiety fighting for control in my chest. Even though I had no idea what he was about to tell me, a tiny spark of hope ignited. Maybe someone finally saw through the perfect family image my parents and Maddie were projecting. Maybe, just maybe, someone would help me finally turn the tables. So, I left the house that evening with a mix of dread and cautious anticipation. The text from my mom replayed in my mind over and over, each word a punch. But now, with Liam reaching out, I felt the first hint that Thanksgiving, and the control my family had over the narrative, might not be set in stone after all. I met Liam at a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled of coffee and warm bread, the hum of quiet conversations all around us. He waved me over and gestured to a booth in the corner. For a moment, I wasn't sure what to expect. Would he be defensive, angry, or dismissive? But the moment I sat down, he looked me in the eyes and said softly, "I'm sorry for how your family has treated you. You didn't deserve that." His words caught me off guard. No one in my family had ever apologized to me. Not like that, not for years of being overlooked and dismissed. I nodded slowly, unsure if I could even trust him yet, but he continued. Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "There's something you need to know about Maddie. Something serious." My stomach tightened, a mix of dread and curiosity. I braced myself as he began to speak. He told me that Maddie had been cheating on him for almost a year. Not just small lies or innocent flirtations, but a full-blown affair with one of his co-workers. Liam had found evidence, messages, meetings, pictures, but he hadn't confronted Maddie yet. He had been holding on to it, unsure how to proceed, not wanting to make a scene. As he spoke, I felt a strange mix of shock and vindication. All the tension, all the frustration I had carried for years, suddenly seemed like it was connected to something bigger. But then Liam added something that made my blood run cold. Maddie had been manipulating him too. She had told him I was dangerous, jealous, and manipulative. According to her, I had been trying to isolate him, control him, and interfere in their relationship. It was all a lie, a careful story she had spun to make sure he wouldn't believe me or suspect the truth. I sat there stunned. For so long, I had been cast as the problem, the one causing chaos, when in reality Maddie had been orchestrating everything to protect her own image. My parents had bought into it completely, and now Liam's confession was the first real acknowledgement that I hadn't been the villain. Liam looked at me seriously. "I wanted you to know because I don't want you getting hurt, and honestly, I think the family needs to hear the truth. Do you want me to tell them before Thanksgiving?" I stared at him, the diner's quiet noise fading into the background. This was a chance, finally, a chance to see some honesty in a family that had spent years denying it. The thought of Maddie's perfect image crumbling, of my parents seeing the truth instead of the lies she'd fed them, sent a shiver through me. But I also knew I had to be careful. I didn't want to escalate things recklessly. I needed to think about how it would play out, how it would affect me, and how I could finally protect myself without losing control of the situation. Liam's revelation changed everything. What had started as another unfair dinner and a text excluding me from Thanksgiving now had the potential to completely turn the tables. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't powerless anymore. After hearing Liam's revelation, I felt a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Anger, relief, disbelief, and something darker, the desire for revenge. Part of me wanted to storm into my parents' house, show them all the evidence, and finally make them see Maddie for who she really was. Another part, though, reminded me of the years I had spent being overlooked, the countless times my voice had been dismissed, and the one thing I still wanted more than anything, my own dignity. I spent hours pacing my apartment, replaying every moment in my mind. I thought about what it would mean if I exposed Maddie myself. Yes, my parents would see the truth, but they would probably still twist it, still find a way to make me look like the villain. I had no desire to be used as a tool for drama or to sacrifice my own composure for the sake of exposing her lies. I realized that my power didn't come from confrontation. It came from holding my integrity and letting the truth unfold naturally. When I told Liam how I felt, he nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "It's not fair that you're dragged into this, and I don't want you to take the fall. I'll handle it. If the truth comes out, it should be on my terms. His calm, measured tone gave me a sense of relief I hadn't felt in years. Finally, someone who understood the stakes and wasn't looking to use me as a pawn. We agreed that Liam would reveal everything to my parents himself. I knew it would be messy. Maddie would deny, twist, and cry. My parents might refuse to believe him at first. There could be shouting, accusations, and weeks of tension afterward. But I also knew that I didn't need to participate directly. I could stay home, protect myself, and observe the fallout from a safe distance, allowing the truth to speak louder than any argument I could make. Thanksgiving morning came, and I stayed in my apartment, feeling a mix of anxiety and cautious anticipation. The house was quiet without me there, and for the first time, I realized how much I had depended on that holiday for some sense of belonging. But this year, staying home didn't feel like punishment, it felt like strategy. I made sure my phone was nearby, waiting for updates from Liam, who promised to keep me informed. Throughout the day, my mind ran through every possible scenario. Maddie might break down, plead for sympathy, or manipulate the situation further. My parents might lash out at me in absentia, blaming me for causing chaos from afar. I prepared myself mentally for the denial, the accusations, and the emotional backlash that was almost guaranteed. As texts from Liam began trickling in, I read them carefully, feeling both vindication and trepidation. Each message confirmed that the truth was coming out, piece by piece, without me having to fight for it or compromise my dignity. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of control over the narrative and, more importantly, over myself. I had chosen not revenge in the traditional sense, but something far stronger: composure, integrity, and patience. And for me, that felt like the first real victory in a lifetime of being overlooked. Thanksgiving evening arrived, and I stayed home, my stomach twisting with nerves and anticipation. I didn't need to be there to know the storm was about to hit. Liam had promised he would handle it, and I trusted him. I paced the apartment, phone in hand, waiting for his first updates, imagining how the scene was unfolding at the Brookhart house. Then the text started. Liam had arrived, despite Maddie's frantic attempts to cancel or delay him. She had called him repeatedly, leaving desperate voicemails, but he ignored them. According to his first message, he walked calmly into the dining room, holding the proof he had gathered, the texts, photos, and messages that exposed Maddie's affair and her attempts to manipulate everyone around her. Within minutes, chaos erupted. Maddie, seeing Liam sitting there, evidence in hand, lost control. She screamed, flailing and pointing fingers, shouting that this was all Zariah's fault, that I had somehow set Liam against her. I felt a mix of anger and vindication reading the texts. For so long, she had tried to cast me as the villain, and now, even from afar, I could see how desperately she clung to that narrative. My parents, as expected, were shocked at first. They tried to defend Maddie, insisting that she was innocent, that Liam must be mistaken. But Liam stayed calm, methodical, showing each piece of evidence, one after the other. Every message, every image, every text that proved Maddie had been cheating and manipulating him was laid bare. Then came the ones that truly shattered the family's image. Messages where Maddie mocked my parents, laughed at their favoritism, and admitted to using it to her advantage. She had weaponized their trust and affection, and Liam had documented it all. My parents went pale, their mouths opening and closing as they struggled to process what they were seeing. I sat at home, phone in hand, reading each update as it came in. The text described a dining room in chaos, raised voices, tears, disbelief. Extended family members had joined the argument, taking sides, some in shock, others in judgment. It was complete mayhem, the perfect unmasking of the image Maddie had carefully crafted for years. And through it all, Liam remained composed, refusing to let Maddie's theatrics derail him. He calmly explained everything, piece by piece, letting the truth speak louder than anyone's accusations. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, not from revenge, but from witnessing the truth finally coming to light. By the time the last text arrived, the family dynamic had shifted entirely. Maddie was cornered, furious, and humiliated. My parents were silent, staring at Liam, finally seeing for themselves what had been happening behind the scenes. And I, from my apartment, felt a release, a mixture of relief, vindication, and empowerment. For the first time, the carefully maintained image of perfection had crumbled, and it had nothing to do with me being there. The truth, finally, had done all the work. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My parents, Regina and Marshall, called me first, their voices trembling with a mix of shock and confusion. "Zariah, we didn't know," my mom stammered. "Can you explain what's really going on?" My dad was quieter, more stunned, just repeating, "Tell us what happened, please." For years, they had assumed Maddie was perfect, and now the truth had shattered their assumptions. But I didn't answer right away. For the first time, I realized I didn't have to rush to soothe their emotions or fix their disbelief. I had spent so long being the peacemaker, running to patch things up when my parents or Maddie caused chaos. Not this time. I let their calls go to voicemail, letting the silence give me strength. They needed to feel the weight of their own oversight, to understand what they had ignored for so long. Meanwhile, Maddie wasn't taking responsibility. From what I heard through messages and a few unavoidable texts, she was trying desperately to shift blame. She claimed she only cheated because of the pressure she felt to be perfect, as if that justified nearly a year of lies and manipulation. She begged Liam to reconsider, trying to paint herself as a victim of expectation rather than her own choices. Liam, thankfully, didn't buy it. Within hours, he sent me a final message. He was breaking up with Maddie and cutting off all contact. The relief I felt was enormous, knowing that at least one person was seeing her for who she really was and refusing to be dragged into her lies any longer. I knew that Liam's decision would leave Maddie rattled, and for the first time, I didn't have to do anything to influence it. The truth was acting on its own. Then the calls started from other relatives. Aunt Clara, Uncle James, and a few cousins wanted explanations. They wanted to know why Maddie had acted this way, what my role had been, and why my parents had ignored the signs for so long. This time, I didn't stumble or rush to justify myself. I calmly told them what I knew, providing the truth without apology or excess detail. I watched as shock and disbelief rippled through the extended family, finally realizing that they couldn't twist the narrative against me anymore. Most importantly, I began setting boundaries. I told my parents that I would answer questions, but I would not engage in emotional manipulation or guilt trips. I told Maddie that she could no longer contact me to try and rewrite history. And I made it clear to the rest of the family that my patience for favoritism and deceit had limits they could no longer cross. For the first time, I felt the power of my own voice and the weight of my own choices. I wasn't rushing to protect anyone else's feelings. I wasn't apologizing for being honest or for surviving years of being overlooked. The family that had once controlled my world was now facing consequences for their choices, and I was finally free to define my role on my own terms. It was chaotic, uncomfortable, and messy, but it was also liberating. For the first time, I wasn't just the peacemaker. I was Zariah, and I had control. After the chaos of Thanksgiving, I realized that my idea of revenge didn't have to be dramatic or destructive. I didn't need to yell, storm out, or retaliate in ways that would make me stoop to Maddie's level. My revenge was going to be quiet, controlled, and powerful. It was going to be about reclaiming my own life, my own voice, and refusing to tolerate emotional manipulation any longer. That was how I would show them I was no longer the powerless daughter in the background. A few days later, my parents called, their voices shaky but pleading. "Zariah, please come over. We want to talk. We want to heal as a family," my mom said. My dad added, "We need to make things right." I could hear the guilt and panic in their tones. For years, they had treated me as less than Maddie, ignored my feelings, and allowed her to manipulate them. Now, finally, they were realizing that they couldn't control the narrative anymore. I agreed to go, but only on my terms. I dressed simply but confidently, making sure I felt grounded in my own strength. When I arrived, the tension was palpable. Maddie sat in the corner, eyes wide, the perfect image she had cultivated shattered in the aftermath of Liam's revelations. My parents looked nervous, unsure how to begin. I didn't start with anger or accusations. Instead, I calmly spoke about my experiences growing up, how I had always been expected to compromise, to smooth things over, to put everyone else's feelings before my own. I explained how Maddie's actions had been excused for years, while mine had been criticized or dismissed. I talked about the favoritism, the emotional dismissal, and the countless times I had been overlooked or blamed unfairly. Every word was measured, deliberate, and clear. When they tried to offer apologies, I didn't accept them lightly. I refused apologies that came with excuses or justifications. "I don't need excuses," I said. "I need acknowledgement of the truth and real change, not words to make yourselves feel better." Their faces fell, realizing that this wasn't going to be another conversation they could spin or control. Maddie sat quietly, her composure gone, her carefully built facade crumbling in front of everyone. For the first time, she wasn't the golden child. She was exposed for the manipulative, self-serving person she had always been. And I realized, as I spoke, that the power I had been denied for so long was finally mine. I could control my life, my narrative, and my emotions. I could stand strong without bending to the whims of my family. When I left the house, I walked out with dignity. I didn't need to scream or fight to be heard. The truth had spoken for me. I felt lighter, stronger, and more in control than I had ever felt in my life. Maddie's spiral was not my responsibility. My responsibility was to myself. And in reclaiming my peace, I had achieved a revenge far more powerful than any words or actions could have delivered. I had taken back my power, and that was more than enough. After the whirlwind of Thanksgiving and the family fallout, I realized I needed to focus on myself for the first time in years. The emotional weight I had carried, the constant need to appease everyone, and the years of being overlooked had taken a toll. I decided to start therapy. Sitting with a professional, talking openly about my childhood, the favoritism, and the manipulation I had endured, was both exhausting and liberating. For the first time, I allowed myself to be fully heard without judgment, and it felt like I was finally reclaiming a part of me I had lost long ago. Around the same time, I began creating my own traditions. Thanksgiving, which had once been a source of stress and disappointment, became a day I looked forward to again. I invited friends who had become like family to me, cooking, laughing, and sharing stories. These gatherings weren't perfect, but they were real, warm, and filled with people who valued me for who I was. It was the first step in building a life where I didn't have to beg for acceptance or pretend to be someone I wasn't just to fit into a family that had rarely seen me. My parents, Regina and Marshall, reached out occasionally, and over time, they began trying to rebuild our relationship. But this time, I set the terms. I would engage with them, but only if they acknowledged the ways they had dismissed and favored Maddie, and if they committed to change. Slowly, cautiously, they began to meet me halfway. I realized that repair was possible, but only when I refused to compromise my dignity or tolerate old patterns. Maddie, on the other hand, was a cautionary tale in real time. Without her job, her boyfriend, or the unwavering support of our family, she started isolating herself. I watched from a distance as the consequences of her actions caught up with her. I didn't gloat or interfere, I simply observed. It was clear that the perfect image she had worked so hard to maintain had crumbled entirely, and she was left to face the aftermath alone. Reflecting on everything, I understood that the real betrayal wasn't the uninviting text, or even the public shaming at the dinner table. It was a lifetime of being unseen, of my voice being dismissed, and of my feelings being considered less important than maintaining a family facade. That was the wound I carried for years, and finally, I was able to address it, not by revenge in the traditional sense, but by choosing myself. My revenge had never been about destroying anyone else. It had been about reclaiming my own power, dignity, and sense of worth. By letting the truth come out, by refusing to participate in manipulations, and by finally prioritizing myself, I had allowed the consequences to fall where they belonged. I had stepped out of the shadows, and in doing so, I had built a life rooted in authenticity, boundaries, and self-respect. For the first time, I was free. I was seen. And that, more than anything, was the beginning I had been waiting for. Do you think Zariah made the right choice by stepping back and focusing on herself, or should she have stayed and tried to fix things with her family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what you think. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new one.